Welcome back to the Purple Political Breakdown. How's it going? How's your day been? We are back at it again. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back to talk about politics. I have changed the format a little bit. I'm a bit tired because I had a pretty busy day. One of those things that coincided with my busy day is that I went to the No Kings protest in my area. I was a little late because I typed in the directions wrong, but I still was able to go, advocate, talk. And that's the important part, the talking part. I think people are doing a great job peacefully protesting, putting up their signs, saying what they need to say, but advocating for a country without a king, without a fief. You know what I'm saying? That's valuable. That's important. My intention going there is also advocating, support whatever I have to support, donate with whatever I have to donate. But I wanted to talk to the people. One of the things that I'm doing now is talking about local politics, showing people the value of it. And I'll be doing that for the state I live in, being Ohio. But I was able to ask these people their thoughts about the current political climate. I was able to talk to a lot of different types of people, which was my intention. I talked to some older black folk. I talked to an older white lady. I talked to an older white gentleman who was apparently did a little wrestling, boxing, and is a political activist. Talked to some younger individuals. I made sure to diversify, not just talk to people that look like me, but talk to a lot of different types of people to see how they act, why they're here, and what they think about the current situation. You would expect this very similar answers in terms of understanding Donald Trump, what he's doing. I thought it was really cool when I heard like when people, especially the older people, they actually knew like details of what's going on politically. So that impressed me because sometimes I can get a little black-pilled in terms of people's education of the political landscape. But you could tell when someone knows what they're talking about and then when someone who's just there because they're advocating for principle, which is fine. I just want to be very clear. It's fine. Certain individuals were more than willing to converse and have a conversation. Other individuals were a lot more, I wouldn't say insecure, but not willing to talk a lot. I had to kind of get it out of them a little bit. I asked them questions and then I wanted to understand what they were looking for in the Democratic candidate for governor in Ohio. And some of the things that I heard were, fight back. Seem like you're not only like doing things that are good, but also fighting against the fascism that the MAGA administration is pushing. Advocate for very clear and describable plans and principles. People have lost a lot of faith in the government, but they want someone to help with housing, help with grocery prices, advocate for the rights of the people in the state themselves. So these are super important things. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my experience in the No Kings protest. Wish I was there longer. I had to come back for a podcast episode to record, and unfortunately I still missed it. So honestly, it didn't work out, but I'll have that guest on a different time. I also want people to know that I am doing things a little bit differently for the podcast. The format, the same type of segments will be there, but I won't be as scripted. I'll be more free flowing, so it's more of a conversation. I like that better anyway. Yes, I can just read off a script, but that doesn't seem like me. That doesn't seem genuine. I do have notes to talk about the different political issues, and I'm not going to talk about everything, but I'm going to talk about the things that I deem important for you, ladies and gentlemen, to pay attention to. So we still got all the segments. We still have a lot of great information. And without further ado, let's start off with nuanced news. Let's start off with the Supreme Court chaos that is taking place, ladies and gentlemen, because the Supreme Court is a weird entity in the United States right now, and we probably should have a deeper, more articulate conversation in whether or not Supreme Court reform is necessary, considering how they continuously capitulate to what Donald Trump wants. There's some important arguments that's going to be taking place over the next couple months, couple of weeks that you need to pay attention to. One of the big ones that happened recently is the Supreme Court heard argument in Louisiana v. Callis, a case that could severely weaken or strike down Section 2 of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Section 2 prohibits states from drawing districts that dilute racial minorities' voting power. That's something very important to remember as we go through this. The background, the timeline of the things going on is everything is based in Louisiana. That's what's going to be the hub in terms of voting rights and voting representation moving forward, especially in more minority communities. Around 33% black population across 6 congressional districts are in Louisiana. In a 2022 map, only one majority black district, despite representing 1/3 of population, existed. Federal court ruling found the 2022 map violated Section 2. The 2024 map, which is the edited version or the updated version, had Louisiana creating a second majority black district. In the 2024 election, that helped Democrat Cleo Fields win in the new district. And the current lawsuit that is being put in place, self-described non-African Americans sued, claiming the new map relied too heavily on race. So there's people who are trying to go out of their way and strike this down, therefore changing up the congressional districts. Louisiana initially defended its new map, but has now switched sides, joining challengers in arguing that Section 2's redistricting provision is unconstitutionally discriminatory. Attorney General Elizabeth Murrell claimed the court's jurisprudence keeps whipsawing us back and forth. The Alabama decision essentially requires considering race, but not too much. Here's some other key details. Chief Justice Roberts, who wrote the 2-year-old Alabama decision upholding Section 2, now sounds doubtful, calling Louisiana's district a snake that runs from one end of the state to the other. Justice Kavanaugh, likely a swing vote, seemed receptive to giving states more leeway for partisan map making, stating race-based remedies should not be indefinite. Some of the liberal justices, Justice Kagan, noted that requiring proof of intentional discrimination was tried in 1980, leading Congress to amend Section 2 to ban discrimination in effect. And then Justice Jackson argued Section 2 doesn't need a time limit because the 15th Amendment's protections are permanent. Some things to consider is if Section 2 is overturned or weakened, GOP-controlled states could redraw at least 19 House districts in Republicans' favor. Fair Fight Action predicts up to 19 majority black districts could be redrawn as competitive or safe Republican seats. This is important. If you guys don't know, or you guys should be paying attention, when it comes down to what is going on currently, it's very obvious that there is a fight for the midterm election and voting, especially in creating seats in Congress, because a lot of what the Donald Trump presidency can do can, and oftentimes in the recent couple months, have not been challenged from the majority Congress Republicans. And despite all of that, they realize that everything that the Donald Trump administration has been doing has been very unpopular. So they're trying to create more votes as much as possible, which is why Donald Trump threatened Greg Abbott in the first place to change the maps and to add more seats for Congress. And then the retaliation from Gavin Newsom in California and some of the other states as followed really showcases that this is going to be an ongoing battle. And now MAGA, realizing this, decides to go a different route to create more seats, and attacking this Louisiana provision is one of them. It's very obvious what they're trying to do. This is not an appeal to fairness. This is not an appeal to adhering to voters' rights. It's appeal to winning votes at any means possible. It's appeal to an authoritarian government trying to uphold and retain their authoritarian power. we got to realize that when it comes down to the maps, and we really should have a conversation in terms of gerrymandering, that I'm sure that's going to be something more on the table when the Democrats are officially elected again. We got to understand that when it comes to voting, it should represent the people. And it should represent the people in not a way where it's like, okay, we just have a majority of people and that's going to decide who gets elected into every single place. No, there are different pockets of populations that do deserve their own type of representation, and that's valuable. We just got to discuss like what the fine line is and what determines whether a district is a district in the first place. But that's honestly not a conversation that we're having now. And we know that in certain areas, or not even certain areas, in most areas, minorities are not nearly as represented compared to white people. So if you're trying to create a country for everybody, then you would ensure that people have very similar rights. But that's not what MAGA has tried to do or is going to do in the future. So we will see how this kind of plays out. Another very important thing that happened in regards to the Supreme Court is Alex Jones' Sandy Hook defamation case. The Supreme Court on Monday rejected conspiracy theorist Alex Jones' appeal over a $1.4 billion defamation judgment against him for his false claims that the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting was a hoax. You heard me right. Alex Jones, that incompetent idiot, believed that Sandy Hook and the death of children was a hoax. A Connecticut jury in 2022 awarded $965 million to the families for defamation, infliction of emotional distress, and violations of Connecticut law, and a judge later added $473 million in punitive damages. Jones had to receive default judgments in both Connecticut and Texas because judges found he engaged in flagrant bad faith and callous disregard for the judicial process and willfully non-compliance during discovery. So he's bitching and crying to the court, knowing that MAGA obviously is more than willing to sacrifice their morals to help their fellow man. And that's why a certain individual got pardoned. Who would have thought? I'll probably make a clip about that. But it's kind of crazy that he even attempted this. But this is a situation where it's so clearly a circumstance of MAGA being disgusting, of Alex Jones being disgusting, that there's no way they could have defended. So those are probably the two primary cases that has happened in regards to the Supreme Court that's either has happened or is coming up. Definitely pay attention to it because the Supreme Court decisions could change and affect a lot of people. Let's move on to what is going on regarding our government and play a game called democracy or fascism. I'll let you play that game yourself. You decide based on things that are going on if we're really living in a democracy or a fascist regime. I'm looking, what is I feel like when I look in the camera, my hairline is always like messed up because this part of my hair doesn't grow. Like this one part right here has not grown right for years. So it makes it look more off than it actually is. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it. But all right, let's talk about the government shutdown and talk about all the things that they're doing. So first things first, President Trump announced on October 11th, Saturday, that he identified funds to ensure active military members get paid on October 15th, despite the ongoing government shutdown. Trump directed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to use all available funds. The Pentagon identified approximately $8 billion of unobligated research and development funds from the prior fiscal year to be used for military paychecks if the shutdown continues past October 15th. October 15th would have been the first time in history that members of all branches of the military miss a paycheck due to a government shutdown. That's very important because when it comes down to this situation regarding the government shutdown, the essential employees are the ones who are supposed to get paid regardless. No matter what happens, they should get paid. Now, Donald Trump and the MAGA administration has made it their mission to, look at certain other agencies and determine that they are non-essential, and he's even threatened that people who are getting fired will not get back pay. So it's kind of disgusting, but at the very least, regardless of everything that happens, the military needs to get paid. Trump administration also began laying off approximately 4,100 federal employees across 7 agencies during the shutdown. Trump said layoffs would target Democrat-oriented programs, reiterating his promise to programs he believes are favored by Democratic officials. Members of the aviation industry raised concerns about strains on already thinly staffed air traffic controllers, who are set to miss their full paycheck on October 28th if the funding impasse isn't resolved. I think that we have a pretty decent winner there when it comes down to the game of democracy or fascism. The idea that you're picking agencies to not get funding purely based off their political affiliation is disgusting and unconstitutional. It's nasty, nasty work. And it just shows you that these people don't really care about what's in the best interest of people. They care about power. They care about retaining power and creating a whole new America. And it just doesn't make sense for them to be so antagonistic to literally everything a Democrat does. We also got military families near Norfolk Navy Station were already making plans for missed paychecks and visiting food banks. The government shutdown is the lightest whipsaw after a tumultuous year of layoffs, furloughs, and job assignments. So again, we really got to make sure we're paying our military. But this, in combination to a lot of other things that the MAGA administration is doing, is creating a very negative outlook on them. So Pew polls did some opinion polls about the MAGA administration. So I do want to give you that information. So according to the Pew Research Center Center survey of 3,445 U.S. adults conducted September 22nd and to the 28th, 58% of Americans have an unfavorable view of President Trump, while 40% have a favorable view. Very interesting numbers. 51% of view Vice President Vance unfavorably, while 40% see him favorably, and another 8% say they have never heard of him. That's hilarious. A lot of people don't know what the Vice President does. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson seen unfavorably by 38% of Americans, while 25% view him favorably, and more than a third have not heard of him. It's always concerning that so many people just don't know what's going on. Senate Majority Leader John Thune is the least known of the 4 congressional leaders. 56% of Americans say they have never heard of him, but more have an unfavorable 26% than favorable 16% view of him. As for Democrat leadership, 41% of Democrats and Democratic leaders view House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries positively, while 20% see them negatively. Democrats have more critical of their Senate leader. 39% say they have a negative view of Chuck Schumer, while slightly fewer say they have a positive view. So Democrats are currently getting some pretty positive feedback. We got Schumer's rating among Democrats has grown substantially more negative over the last year because of the government shutdowns and I wouldn't say unwillingness, but not being very transparent in his fight against MAGA, and he's super old. In May 2024, when Democrats had held the Senate and Schumer was majority leader, 47% of Democrats viewed him favorably, so it's a very stark difference. We also got around 7 in 10 Americans say President Trump is trying to exert more power than his predecessors, and most of those who say this describes Trump's effort as a bad thing for the country. 7 in 10 Americans believe that Donald Trump is trying to become a dictator, basically. To go a little deeper in terms of how people are viewing the MAGA administration, Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents overwhelmingly say Trump is pushing the power of his presidency. I mean, he is. So this should be common sense. Republicans and Republican leaders are more divided. And when I said Republican leaners, I mean like Republican-leaning independents. They're about 50%, 49% say Trump is trying to exert more power, and among those who say this, more say it's good for the country than say it's bad. And it shows you exactly what the priorities of MAGA are, and it's very, very concerning. The fact that anybody would say that the president exerting more power than they are giving, consolidating more power, and that is good for the country, is basically saying that they want a benevolent dictator. These people do not care about America anymore. They care about someone taking care of their worthless lives. All right, let me chill. It just upsets me that people believe that this is the best case scenario for America. And I get pretty harsh, I get pretty negative when I hear this. Roughly 8 in 10 Democrats say Trump is trying to exert more presidential power and say this is bad for the country, while 24% of Republicans say he's trying to exercise more presidential power and that this is good for the country. So I still think the majority of MAGA and the majority of Republicans know that this is bad. Will they say anything or will they speak up? Hard to say. But I do have faith that most people in America realize this is bad, and we got to showcase, especially to like the people who are on the edge, that what Donald Trump is doing with MAGA is very unique. It's a very particular circumstance in American history. It's not representative of all politicians that came across the US mantle. He is doing something different, which is why this administration seems so chaotic. So if you realize this, we also got to like humanize the other politicians a little bit more. The ones that are here for the people, or as they say, are here for the people. But at the same time, we got to differentiate the ones who are not, regardless of political leaning, whether they're Democrat or Republican. If they are corrupt, they deserve the hammer. That's not what we're getting right now. We're getting a circumstance where Donald Trump is going after his enemies, regardless of how much good they do for the country. And then the people who are actually corrupt and scam their voter base, they get pardons. Majority of Americans, and this is how people view the improper use of office. Majority of Americans say that since taking office in January, Trump definitely or probably has improperly used his office to punish those who say things he does not like. About 66% of people believe this. Enrich himself or his friends and family, 61% believe this. And encourage federal investigations of his political opponents, 62% believe this. So again, the majority of America realizes who this man really is. Similar majorities say Trump definitely or probably has not set a higher moral standard for the presidency. About 64% said this. Improve U.S. standing around the world. 60% said this. And run an open and transparent administration. 60%. Or improve the government works. 60%. Very interesting. Very interesting. There is no doubt in my mind that the Democrats and the midterms and in the federal election will win. The question is, can we prevent the MAGA administration from doing anything to destroy the country beforehand? To keep on going, more stuff about how people feel about Donald Trump's self-enrichment. Americans are more likely today, 61%, than in 2019, 56%, to say Trump has improperly used his office to enrich himself or his friends and family. Honestly, it should be higher. It should be at least 70%. This is the case in both parties. 89% of Democrats now say this, up from 84% in 2019, and 31% of Republicans say this, up from 23%. Very interesting. And this is how they feel about his executive orders. Roughly half of Americans, about 51%, say Trump is doing too much by executive order, while 6% say he's doing too little, and about a quarter say Trump is doing the right amount. That quarter is insane. That 6% is like batshit crazy. Today, 80% of Democrats say Trump is doing too much by executive order, while more than half of Republicans say Trump is doing about the right amount by executive order. So there is a section of Republicans that know this guy is bad. We just got to go, extend our hand, reach out and say, come home, come home. This is America. This is America. I don't remember how the rest of it goes. Come on home, reasonable Republicans, the real Republicans. And this is some thoughts about his performance. At least 7 in 10 Republicans say this in his current term. Trump definitely or probably has improved the way the government works. 74% of Republicans say this. Improve the country standing in the world. 73% of Republicans say this. Run an open and transparent administration. 70% of Republicans say this. So Republicans, by and large, are delusional. Roughly 9 in 10 Democrats say Trump has improperly used the office, about 90%, and 90% say he enriches himself. Stark divide, but the majority of Americans still believe it, so that's at the very least good that we're understanding that Trump sucks. Massively. Speaking of sucking, speaking of being terrible human beings, you think we would step off from the fascist state of Donald Trump and MAGA? Well, actually, they're showing us their true colors. MAGA's in shambles, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not just, if you guys have seen it, the leaked images of congressional rooms of Republicans having swastikas. I'm not trolling. There's visual proof. And Mike Johnson, that little bitch boy that he is, pretending that this is not the case. Hilarious. Well, they can't pretend about this because we got them in 4K, ladies and gentlemen. 4K of the young Republicans getting exposed. So, young Republican leaders exchanged over 7 months more than 28,000 offensive messages with racist, sexist, and anti-Semitic and violent language and praise for Hitler in chats on Telegram. The exchanges between young Republican leaders in New York, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont included participants referring to black people as monkeys and watermelon people, musing about putting their political opponents in gas chambers, and lauding Republicans who they believe support slavery. Kansas Young Republicans chair Alex Dwyer responded to a question about his hotel room number with 1488. White supremacist shorthand for "we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children," and "Hail Hitler." It doesn't get as bad as this, ladies and gentlemen, but we got more to talk about in regards to this. This is terrible. These young Republicans, quote unquote, and we'll talk about that term young in a second. They're pieces of garbage human beings. They're no different from that exposed individual in that one Jubilee video, that fascist that lost his job. They're garbage, but they make up the young Republican base. They're in leadership. They are advocating. Peter Gunther, hear what I'm about to tell you, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Gunther, aged 31, and the former chair of the New York State Young Republicans, wrote, "I love Hitler" in one of the messages, and also wrote, "Everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber," while discussing his campaign to become chair of the National Young Republicans organization. At least one member of the Telegram chat, identified as Bartels, currently serves in the Trump administration as a senior advisor in the Office of General Counsel and the U.S. Small Business Administration. And then William Hendricks, vice chair of the Kansas Young Republicans, and until last Thursday, a communications assistant for Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach, was terminated after the Attorney General's office learned of the messages. Young Republicans. 31 is not young. And these people have positions of authority. The Young Republicans Nationals Federation's board of directors said, "We are appalled by the vile and inexcusable language revealed in the political article published today. Such behavior is disgraceful, unbecoming of any Republican, and stands in direct opposition to the values of our movement represents. Those involved must immediately resign from all positions within their state and local Young Republican organizations." The Kansas GOP said the Kansas Young Republicans organization is inactive as of Tuesday after leaked messages showed the group's leader making racist and anti-Semitic remarks. New York Republican reps Mike Lawyer and Elise Stefanik condemned the rhetoric, with Lawler writing on X that members who participate should resign from any leadership position immediately. So some people are coming out condemning it. That's a reasonable thing to do when you have people of authority, people of influence, people that are not just kids acting like terrible, terrible human beings. It makes sense for you to condemn these actions, right? You know how we should condemn political violence? You know how we should condemn when the far left goes too far, when Antifa goes too far? All the Democrats, everybody on the left, we all collectively say, that's not okay. Not okay at all. But the funny thing about that is Vice President J.D. Vance brushed off the message leaks, saying the reality is that the kids do stupid things, especially young people. Despite the members of the group chat being understood to be aged in their late 20s and early 30s, you mother... Calm down. The integrity behind MAGA has already been in the mud, but this should be a layup. This should be an alley-oop. A White House spokesperson said, Only an activist left-wing reporter would desperately try to tie President Trump into a story about a random group chat he has no affiliation with, while failing to mention the dangerous smears coming from Democrat politicians who have fantasized about murdering their opponent and called Republicans Nazis and fascists. The White House's response deflected from the content of the message entirely and attacked the media rather than condemning the racist and anti-Semitic language. So, the people of influence of MAGA, the MAGA administration, their response to this is referring to these fucking 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds as young kids doing stupid actions. That this is a random group chat. But these are the same people that will use rhetoric from the far left, random fucking TikTok accounts, random Twitter accounts, to use that to condemn the entire Democrats. But we know that this is not equal representation. We know that these are not equal treatment, because every time we refer to MAGA, they always do it worse. They're always on the wrong side. They're always hypocrites. Where you can find a random, no-name anime profile picture, crazy communists on the far left, we find actual people in political influence of the young people of the Republican Party, and it's dismissed, and you try to play victim. This is why when I do these podcast episodes, I'm not doing them to try to preach a sense of neutrality. I'm doing them to showcase a level of truth, a level of reality. This is disgusting. This is disgusting behavior, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, MAGA doesn't care. That's a lot of politics, but I do want to switch gears a little bit, because I do believe something that we all need to pay attention to, despite the political craziness and chaos that's taking place, is we need to realize that AI is about to run the world, ladies and gentlemen. AI is taking over, and you got to pay attention to some of the things that is happening, because this is not a trend. This is not just a fleeting technological innovation. This is the future. This is equivalent, maybe even greater than the invention of social media and the smartphone. Here's a few things that I want you to pay attention to. Across 24 countries, and I'm going to start off with a survey, because I want people to understand the sentiment of AI. And I'm going to outlay the important things that are just happening. You just need to be informed. That's all I care about. Across 25 countries surveyed, a median of 34% of adults are more concerned than excited about AI's increased use in daily life, while only 16% are more excited than concerned. Concerns are especially high in the United States, Italy, Australia, Brazil, and Greece, where about half of adults say they are more concerned than excited. There's a strong partisan divide in the U.S. on AI regulation. Trust. 54% of Republicans trust the U.S. to regulate AI effectively, compared with only 36% of Democrats. That's important. That's very important to understand the general feelings about AI. And as it gets more integrated into society, people are going to more than likely get more used to it. And that getting used to is what these companies are expecting, because there's a lot of money to make in AI. I've always said my opinion very clearly. I think AI is great. I think AI is a great tool. I think it can maximize productivity and efficiency in a way that is super valuable. Like, I use AI to help me run a podcast by myself. But there needs to be a realization that just like how social media has negatively affected society in so many different ways that people did not account for, AI will do so as well, and arguably worse. And AI is not something that can just be given to people and that people are just going to use it properly. No, there is very nefarious ways that AI can be used, which is why regulation is so valuable. So there's a couple things that I need you to pay attention to. Anthropic disrupted a sophisticated operation in July 2025, where criminals used Claude Code to extort at least 17 organizations with ransoms, sometimes exceeding $500,000, with the AI making tactical decisions like analyzing financial data to determine ransom amounts. Another cybercriminal used Claude to develop and sell ransomware variants of $400 to $1,200 despite being unable to implement core components without AI assistance, showing how AI is enabling criminals who lack technical skills the ability to do crimes. North Korean operatives use Claude to fraudulently secure remote positions at U.S. Fortune 500 tech companies by creating fake personas and passing technical assessments. So like I said, there's very nefarious ways that AI can be used, which is why having certain fail-safes in place and certain ways to regulate it's important. But I don't think the billionaires care. I think what is really going to happen is that the billionaires see that the more people use AI, the more money they make. They are investing early. Now I'm investing in AI too because I know that AI is going to be the future and it will continuously make you more money. So I got in the wave pretty quickly. Now this is not financial advice by any means, but I just know that AI is the future. And in order for you to make as much money as possible, the product has to be pushed out as quickly as possible. That's very important. Very important. Some other things to consider. Defense capabilities are rapidly improving. Claude, shown at 4.5, succeeds on 76.5% of cybersecurity challenges, double the 35.9% success rate achieved just 6 months earlier. At HackerOne, AI helped reduce average vulnerability intake time by 44%, while improving detection accuracy by 25%. However, Anthropic's research just showed 250 malicious documents can compromise an AI model, highlighting the fragility of these systems and the urgent need for organizations to integrate AI into security infrastructure. It should be a gradual process where you're maximizing the security and minimizing the danger, the damage. But I don't think that's happening. We got OpenAI announcing that starting in December, verified adult users will be allowed to generate erotica and other mature content as part of a treat adult users like adult principle. Yeah, and that works super well in our modern day, right? Like OnlyFans has been so good for treating adults like adults. Cam girls been so good for treating adults like adults. Tinder has been so good for treating adults like adults. Now, this comes as 19% of high school students have either had a romantic relationship with an AI chatbot or know a friend who has. And just months after parents sued OpenAI alleging ChatGPT encouraged their teenager's son suicidal ideations. 19% is wild. It's insane. And the answer is just to make it more loose? Really, OpenAI? Really, Sam Altman? What is your priority here? Is it the people or is it your pockets? I think it's pretty clear to me what your priorities are. I think it's pretty clear to everybody what your priorities are. It's freaking disgusting. The idea of treat adults like adults is a pathetic excuse to feed off their urges, their insecurities, their sexual desire. Loneliness and detachment has never been higher in history, and AI is going to make it worse. We all saw the movie Her, right? You know, the movie where the guy fell in love with his smartphone? Well, that's just a movie of an eventual reality, because these AI companies don't give two shits about your well-being, your mental health, your ability to create connections. No, they care about making money from you. That's all that matters. All that matters. There's also a strong correlation between a country's income and AI awareness. Around half of adults in wealthy countries like Japan, Germany, France, and the US have heard a lot about AI compared to only 14% in India and 12% in Kenya. Young adults are significantly more aware and enthusiastic about AI than older generations. For example, 68% of Greek adults under 35 have heard a lot about AI compared to 20% of those 50 and older. Globally, more people trust the EU to regulate AI than trust the United States, which is fair because the United States is just pushing out AI, whereas the EU seems like they actually want to regulate it, and they trust it more than China. China has a similar issue where they're just throwing AI out there. It's crazy to me. It's insane to me that this is where we are in society. It's insane to me that it's very apparent that AI is being used regardless of how it negatively affects society. And we saw this coming. We knew that this was coming here, but the powers to be do not care. More specifically, MAGA and the billionaires don't care, because MAGA is the party of the billionaire. Let's be very clear. MAGA wants to get rich. And one of the best ways to get rich right now, invest in AI. That's a lot in AI. It's crazy. Before we wrap up, I do want to end with some good news. Ladies and gentlemen, one thing that is very good is the No Kings protests seem very peaceful, but I guarantee there's going to be news of violence, and Donald Trump will try to use this in his favor. But before we do that, I do want to shout out the Alive Network. I do apologize for interrupting this great podcast episode, but I have a question for you. Did you know you can support this show by downloading and becoming a member of the Alive Podcast Network app? You'll experience unlimited access to Black-hosted content, and we'll be able to keep bringing you amazing content week after week. If you enjoy what I'm doing, then I'm sure you're going to enjoy a bunch of other creators as well by downloading this app, of course. So without further ado, after you're done watching and being entertained with today's news or conversation, make sure you guys go download the Alive Network app now. All right, we're back. Now, I do want to wrap up with the good the media doesn't tell you, because they don't focus on good news. They only focus on chaos, infighting, polarization, money. All right, so here's some good things. Suriname announced legal protections for over 25 million acres of rainforest, covering 90% of its land. As one of only 3 countries that absorb more carbon than they emit, this commitment sets a new standard for Amazonian conservation and offers hope for the future of the world's rainforests. Google and Yale University unveiled C2S Scale, a 27 billion parameter AI model that can detect cancer signals in individual cells that are invisible to humans. The model even suggested a novel treatment approach using existing drugs to make tumors more visible to the immune system, which lab tests confirmed works. Huge news. Even though I tell people about the dangers of AI, I do want to say again, I think there's a lot of great things that AI can bring to society. Philanthropist Mackenzie Scott donated $42 million to 10,000 Degrees, a California nonprofit supporting low-income students through college. This transformational gift will expand scholarships, mentorship, and financial aid, advising to help break cycles of generational poverty. I really appreciate it. If I was rich, you know how much I would be giving back? Now, I would be living my life to the fullest, but I will be 100% giving back and try to build up society in a very productive manner. Very similar to kind of like Mr. Beast. He does a lot of philanthropy. I'll do it my own way, but I think that if you make that much money, the fact that you're not doing your best in spreading a message of positivity and supporting people and pushing to help society, I think that makes you selfish. I just do. I think it makes you greedy and selfish, and you only care about yourself. When I was younger, I was like, oh yeah, everybody lives their life. Who cares? At this point, as a older individual, nope. I don't think anybody deserves leeway for not being helpful. I'm not saying they have to let it be known. I'm not saying they have to tell people the charity they're donating, because some people will micromanage and go like, oh, you only donated that amount. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me is pushing the message. And that's something you can do regardless. Push the message. Showcase that the importance of helping each other. Positive messaging. And I just don't think there's a lot of content creators that I feel like don't do that enough. And I do think they do. And sometimes you need to help them understand their value and their influence, and some people don't. It's tough because sometimes your favorite creator is great, but he just doesn't do these things. Sometimes they do and they just don't say it. But I do think if you do hear this message, you should self-reflect on what you're providing for society. The same society that has made you rich, wealthy, and gave you the opportunity to live your best life. A couple more things. Scientists successfully reversed Alzheimer's disease in mice using injectable nanoparticles that clear toxic brain plaque. After 6 months of treatment, a middle-aged mouse showed restored normal behavior, potentially revolutionizing treatment for one of the leading causes of death among older adults. So that could be huge. Again, there's so much great technological innovation that's happening, regardless of MAGA trying to defund all these medical programs because they believe that working out is better than vaccines. Shout out these great things. And then for the first time in 50 years, Camden went an entire summer without a single homicide thanks to a new community-focused police department. Interesting. That's very interesting. This milestone demonstrates how reformed policing approaches can dramatically improve public safety and save lives. Interesting. I'll be very curious to talk to someone from Camden, New Jersey to see what that actually looks like. I might put that in my notes to try to reach out to someone in the police department from Camden, New Jersey to talk about what they do in terms of their policing. I'm very curious about that. But that is all I got, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, whether you're watching visually, looking at I feel like my hairline is messed up, but I really can't tell. Sometimes it looks okay, sometimes it doesn't. I think the lighting also makes it look, because this is not as back as it seems, but it just doesn't look as straight. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm overthinking it. If someone knows more, give me advice. Let me know. I just can't tell. I don't know if it's the mic angle or what, but it is what it is. Hope you guys enjoyed. Share with your friends and family. If you want to contact me, feel free via my email, thetrendgoldenfaith@gmail.com. Podcast episode every Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Saturdays will be, well, not every single week. Sometimes if I don't have a guest, I won't do a Tuesday episode, or if I don't do the open panel, I won't do a Thursday episode. What you definitely will always get moving forward is a Saturday episode and a Sunday episode, always dropping 8 a.m. EST. I'm doing a lot of work. I'm doing it by myself, unfortunately, but we got a mission. We got to grind. Hope you guys enjoyed. You have a good one. Take care.